Thing I'm coming to grips with about myself more and more as time goes on is just how easy it is to get me to like things. Anything. You put it in front of me, I'll usually enjoy it. And I had this thought recently about pop music. Why is it that I like pop music so much? If you put on like a Taylor Swift or a Bruno Mars tune, and I just start jamming out to it. I enjoy it. It's a universal kind of feeling that everyone can partake in. And generally, I tend to like most music. Like if you give me a suicidal black metal album, I'll probably enjoy it. I don't really have a standard for what makes good black metal. I just enjoy it. And same with like genres like thrash and death metal and stuff like punk. Like I've listened to so much punk, but not just like hardcore and the things that you would traditionally consider to be punk were away from the mainstream. I like pop punk a lot too, and like when I think about this sort of disconnect I have between the things that I like that I talk with people online the most about, the sort of communities that I frequent, they have a type of music or a type of show, a type of art that they consume. People really liking stuff like Death Grips and experimental artists like 100 gecs and Merzbow and this kind of stuff. And I enjoy all of that. And I can talk all day about it with people, but that isn't the only thing that I like. But if you looked at me speaking in those communities, it would appear as if those are the only things that I like. And I have this habit of presenting myself as a product, as like these things are the things that essentially form this character. This character called Star likes this type of art the most, and all of my favorite shit is generally pretty experimental. They talk this way, they think this way, their emotions are like this, their worldview is like this. And I exaggerate that a little bit, completely instinctually. Like, it's not an intentional thing that I do. I just start going off when I'm speaking. Or even like when I'm thinking, the thought pattern will seep in that I'm essentially this character, or I'm essentially this product. Even though it's way more nuanced than that, that there's way more factors that make up who I am as a human being beyond all of these aspects that sort of coalesce with one another to form a character that makes sense. That like human beings, they're not people in a TV show. Like if you have someone in a TV show, they're wearing black all the time and they only listen to goth music and they talk a certain way that relays to you those traits. And that's easy to understand. And people like that because it's easy to understand. It's easier to empathize with a character that isn't complex. Or if they are complex, they're complex in a way that's very continuous. That, these aspects of them, they repeat themselves. And you can see the similarities between those aspects. But when you have someone like me who likes things that are totally contradictory to one another, it gets a little bit more complicated because you can't apply an archetype to someone who can listen to like Ariel Pink and, well, I mean that's sort of like experimental pop, but someone who can listen to like a Pharrell song and then listen to like Burzum and Emperor and I don't know. Let's see who's a good rapper, like Dialect or like Young Lean. Who else? There's somebody. Atrocity Exhibit. Danny Brown. And these are all artists that I like. I've listened to a lot of trap music. I don't listen to as much trap music as I used to. I still like it. I used to be really into it. If you put it on, I'll be fine. I do listen to me some Travis Scott though quite often. Um, but like I like a lot of the classics. Like one of my favorite artists, like top 10 ever, is Notorious Biggie Smalls. And he's continually accredited as like one of the most influential and artistic figures in hip hop. And the same with like Kendrick Lamar. And those are mainstream takes to have. But people who are into like weird art shit also feel that way, and I can be into the weird art shit that those people are into. Like there's this artist I was listening to recently from the hip hop genre who had like mixed noise music in a way, like not, it's not like clipping, which I do like clipping a lot. It's a degree above that. I just can't remember the name for the life of me. But you get where I'm going. The basic point here is that I can listen to just about everything. And so when someone puts a song in front of me, I'm gonna like the song. The only mediums where I'm more difficult to recommend stuff to is anime and sometimes books. With books, it's a bit of a weird situation because I read a lot, obviously, and I love reading. And if a book is bad, I can force myself to read it just by like reading bits of it at a time and writing stuff down. And so I've created strategies to be able to make myself be able to read more stuff that I dislike because I think there's something valuable in learning from books like that. But with books, like there's just a certain style that I enjoy, like stuff like Nisio Isen's work. This very self-indulgent, direct writing style that has, a lot of foreseeable emotions in it, and like wordplay and stuff that, has characters basically doing a dialogue that I'm doing right now, but, more self-aware and more succinct. And I love his writing style. He's one of my favorite writers. But then, like, my favorite writer of all time is Charles Bukowski, because the way that he writes is just so dense that every single word has a purpose, but it's simple. Is that he's able to make beautiful passages out of very simple words. And it's impactful because, you don't need to do all of the window dressing that I do in my writing. I try not to do that as much, like just putting all of these words in my writing just for the sake of them. A lot of the time when I use more complex language or ways of explaining things, it's not because I'm trying to, it's because that's just naturally how I describe stuff. But in general, like that's my favorite kind of writing is the direct, punchy, bim, 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 it goes point, point, point. Like it's fast, it's quick, and you get a direct emotional connection from it. But like, if you were to give me like a comic book or a manga, I'm gonna enjoy all of them. I have not read a single manga that I've disliked. I have not read a single comic book that I've disliked. I've had comic books or manga that have been a little bit difficult to finish, only around the edges though. Like I read them so quickly, you just fly through it. But there's going to be something there that I enjoy. With video games, it's the same story again. There's only a couple games that I truly dislike. I'll be able to play just about everything for at least a couple hours. It's just a matter of if I get stuck in it or not, and if getting out of being stuck is too strenuous of a situation with little reward. But that's only a very rare occurrence. I enjoy pretty much every single game that you throw at me. Except for like strategy games and stuff. If you give me a strategy game or a card game, I'm just gonna be bored by it because that's not my expertise. I don't like sitting down and having to plan stuff and read through a whole bunch of text. I like JRPGs. There are some strategy JRPGs that I really like. But in general, like that's not my flavor. I don't like stuff like that. But I like board games at the same time. I've been a really big chess player. I was really, really obsessed with playing chess, especially when I was much younger. And so it's not like the idea of strategizing at all is completely cut off from me. But in the context of card games and video games, it just doesn't work. But that's the one caveat that I can give on types of games that I dislike. Otherwise, it's basically home free. I like everything. You find this with music. You find this with most books. If not them being good, then at least they're tolerable for me to read. And that's on the difficult scale is, books and anime. With anime, I've found so many shows that I dislike. And there are even shows that I did sort of enjoy that I just couldn't finish because the process of watching it was just so tiring. And that's like the one medium where I consistently have like an ideology and a taste. that you can point out and say, Star really hates these kind of shows. You know, like, and I hate a lot of anime that people love, like Madoka Magica. I fucking hate that show, and people constantly shill for it. I watched the entire thing and gave it like a 2 out of 10. So even though I love anime and I love the things that make anime unique, that is consistently the medium that I deride the most and complain about the most. And I don't know why that is. I think there are certain tropes that anime has that make it more impenetrable to, I guess what you could say is like normie viewers like me. But I'm not a normie viewer though, because if you look at my favorite shows, I have lots of like artistic shows from like the 80s, and you know stuff like Cowboy Bebop and you know well-known classics like that, as well as more obscure things like Penguin's Memory of all things. So it's not like my taste isn't. It's not like my taste is just stuff like SAO. You know what I mean? Which obviously I fucking hate that show. But like anime, I'm very very picky with, and that and books. And like I said, there's caveats with books that make it easier for me to read them in a lot of ways. Anime is basically the one medium that I have consistent issues with. With films, I can watch bad films for the sake of them just being bad, and I'll just enjoy the fact that they are bad. I don't mind it, you know? Like, with stuff like YouTube as well, if you make me watch a Joey the Anime Man video, I'll like the video. It's not hugely informative or anything. It's not changing the conversation. A lot of my favorite videos would change the conversation, you know, videos that have a big analytical basis to them. But like in general, when it comes to YouTube, you can throw most things in front of me and I'll enjoy it. And I have trouble admitting that. I have trouble admitting that I like a lot of PewDiePie videos, that I think a lot of PewDiePie videos are genuinely funny. Even someone like fucking Jacksepticeye, I can enjoy a number of his videos. I can enjoy a number of Markiplier videos. Would I actively seek out and try and watch these people? No, but it's something that I can do. And that's the difficult thing that's the difficult thing to explain, because if you look at like my YouTube 3x3, it's all really weird stuff, that, you know, videos that are like similar to these, that are very niche and kind of impenetrable, but I can watch and enjoy most things that are on YouTube. I don't watch that much YouTube just because I don't prioritize it that much. I consume a lot of other things, I do a lot of other things, but it's there. And even like with podcasts, like I've listened to so many different types of podcasts just to have something on, and I can do it. But something I've noticed is that, you know, even though it's generally pretty easy for me to consume stuff, it becomes insanely easy if I have another person there. For example, when I watched the show, Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? I watched like 6 or 7 episodes of that show continuously with my dad, and just because I was watching it with my dad, it was easy to watch. I would not have been able to watch that show on my own, but just because there was another person in the room, even when we weren't talking or making fun of the show, which we did a bit of, it was easier just because there was someone there who wanted to watch it, you know? And so like there are shows that he'll introduce me to, for instance, that I look at the cover, I look at the premise, and I'm like, this is something that's not in the realm of my taste at all. This is never something that I would seek out, but I enjoy it just because I'm watching it with him. That like I can point out where all of the flaws are as I'm watching it, but I'm still entertained despite those things. That there's nothing that's going to nag at me and be like, ugh, you know, ugh, I don't want to watch this kind of thing. It just doesn't happen. I just tolerate it. Even that I know consciously there are things about it that are bad, it's not bad for me. Again and again and again. And if you look at like my favorite films, it's stuff like The Big Lebowski, it's stuff like 2001, it's stuff like Love and Pop by Hideaki Anno. These are artistic films, you know, films like The Comedy, you know, like post-structuralist kind of comedy film. The SpongeBob movie is one of my favorite films. It's I will never stop telling people that the SpongeBob movie is one of the greatest films ever made. Um, but like, and with cartoons too. With cartoons, I can watch most cartoons. Now it's a little bit like anime, where if you put on, I don't know, like the Lego Unikitty, to pull out an old meme there, like the Lego Unikitty TV series. I can tolerate it, sort of. Like, when I was in the mental hospital, I had to watch a lot of episodes of Lego Unikitty because we only were allowed to watch Cartoon Network. This was the first time around, not the second time. But when I was there, we had to watch a lot of Unikitty, and so it was a bit easier to watch just because that was the only thing. Um, but like stuff like that's a little bit more difficult, a little bit. But even then, like, there's so many cartoons that aren't good that I can enjoy. If you just put something in front of me, I'll probably like it. Um, and I don't know what that's called. There's not like a type of taste that you could easily attribute that to. I mean, with my philosophy, like even going down into the depths of things, like getting away from media and how many of these things that I like or am able to enjoy. With philosophy, I'm so all over the place that consistently no one has been able to give me a proper ideology. I've had labels that I've given myself, but on so many issues, I would be vehemently against many of the things that those labels ascribe to. And so the label ultimately wouldn't fit me properly because I couldn't back all of the stuff within it. Um, but like, there's so many things that I believe philosophically that there's some sort of abstraction or some sort of nuance that I would use as an explanation for why the things don't contradict one another, but it is nuanced. Like, I have all of these ideas that you can't pinpoint. This is a philosophy that you can have. Like, the closest thing that I could think of is postmodernism or just generally anti-capitalist ideas. Stuff like what is it called? Stuff like anti-humanism and these things. Very, very broad ideas like post-left and these kind of things. Broad, broad, broad labels. But I can't give you a belief system that I have. I can't point to you, yeah, I am an anarcho-nihilist or something. I can't do that. Um, so, it's weird. It's weird being someone who's difficult to pin down or to define. You have to do a lot more explaining in a situation like that, and a lot more thinking about it. Um, but like, it puts a hole into the persona because the persona is that Star is like this edgy, isolated figure who makes videos all the time and likes weird stuff. And it's true. My favorite stuff is weird stuff. A lot of it, at least. A lot of it's, critically acclaimed stuff too. But, you know, uh, but like, there's holes in that. That's not a coherent thing. I may present it like it's a coherent thing, like, hey, look at me, I'm such an edgy guy, this is all of my belief system and this is all of what I like, and but it's not that simple. It's not that simple. You can't just present it like that. And it's so tempting for me because naturally I just do that. Naturally I just present myself as a product and as a character. I don't know how to stop it. I've been seeing myself as I get older not doing it more and more because I'm recognizing it and I'm able to put it into words. Before I couldn't even put it into words. Um, but it's there, and part of it is admitting it. Part of it is admitting that you have this issue with over presenting or exaggerating certain elements of yourself. And once you admit that, that's a starting point. You're going to lose some people by saying that. They're going to go, oh, hey, that's not very cool, but it's fine. You can't get everybody. Um, and so I am very easy to recommend stuff to. I like most things. It's hard for me to dislike a lot of stuff. Um, I don't have specific tastes. I don't have even like specific interests. I have interests that I'm really, really passionate about heavily, but I don't like you can't put a like I can watch a sports game. You know, I can watch a game of soccer. I can, get shortwave and listen to a game of baseball. I'm not as passionate about it as some of my friends might be who are obsessed, but I can do it. And I'll have some fun. I'll have some fun listening to the game. Um, I'll have some fun listening to the top 40 pop tunes. And I may not relate to it in the way that people who are obsessed with those things are, but I can understand the base level aspects of it, and I can have a conversation about it. Um, and but I can do that with so many things. Like universally, I can always sort of understand where it is that someone is coming from. Um, and that's difficult. That's difficult to pin down. Like what kind of person is that, you know? There's not a persona that I can pull out and say I'm just easily enjoyed, you know? uh it's weird. It's very, very weird.